Up until the discovery of the Light Fury in the third movie, we all believed that Toothless was truly alone in this world. But what if there are other Night Furies out there? How would that impact the How to Train Your Dragon universe, and what are the directions the story could go in from there? In today's video, we're exploring what would happen if Toothless is not the last Night Fury. Let's start with what we know from the movies. It was Grimmel who labeled Toothless as the last Night Fury, as he claimed to have systematically hunted down every single other member of his species. This revelation is tragic, it's dramatic, and it makes Toothless incredibly special and rare. But here's the problem with this narrative. Until he found Toothless, Grimmel believed that he'd hunted the Night Furies to extinction. So, if Grimmel was wrong once, what's preventing him from being wrong again? Seeing how his skills as a dragon hunter are already pretty questionable, it's entirely likely that Grimmel missed more Night Furies during his expeditions. Think about it. The world of How to Train Your Dragon is vast and largely unexplored. We've seen glimpses of distant lands, hidden islands, and secret dragon sanctuaries. In a world this big and mysterious, is it really possible that one obsessed dragon hunter could track down every member of the most elusive dragon species that exists? Night Furies are described as being the most intelligent dragons. They're fast, they can become invisible, and they're incredibly strategic. These aren't the kind of dragons that would just sit around waiting to be hunted. It makes perfect sense that some would have gone deep underground, perhaps even literally. Maybe they found their own hidden sanctuaries and unexplored parts of the archipelago, or even ventured to completely different regions of the world that Grimmel never reached. There's also the possibility that Grimmel straight up lied, and many fans have pointed to the possibility that he is an unreliable narrator. Think about it, Grimmel has no trophies to prove he killed even one Night Fury, and was also surprised to learn about Toothless's cloaking ability. It's entirely possible that his claims of being a dragon hunter were wildly overstated. But let's be a bit kinder towards Grimmel and assume he hunted down all the true Night Furies aside from Toothless. Our second theory involves the Light Fury and the concept of subspecies. The Light Fury's existence proves that there are variations within the Fury family of dragons. If a Light Fury could exist without humans knowing about it, what does that say about our understanding of Night Fury populations? Maybe Night Furies didn't go completely extinct, but instead interbred with other dragon species, creating hybrid bloodlines that we don't immediately recognize as Night Furies. Take the example of the Night Lights we see at the end of the Hidden World. They're clearly hybrids, but they carry Night Fury genetics. Now, expand that concept. What if, over the years since Grimmel's hunting spree, there have been half-Night Furies or other hybrid combinations scattered throughout the world? This would mean that Night Fury genetics have been quietly surviving and spreading hidden in plain sight within other dragon populations. Perhaps the most suitable candidates for this theory would be other strike-class dragons like the Skrill, whose speed and lightning abilities link it pretty closely to the Night Fury. Now, if either of these theories are true, the implications are absolutely massive for everything we know about the How to Train Your Dragon universe. Let's break down each impact and really dive deep into what this could mean. Currently, Toothless is recognized alpha of all dragons, but we don't really know how his authority extends beyond the Hidden World. And even if he does have control over all dragons, that doesn't guarantee that the different dragon colonies will get along with each other. We got a taste of how Toothless's loyalty can be swayed in the Hidden World with the Light Fury. Now, imagine if it wasn't just one potential mate, but an entire community of Night Furies who welcomed Toothless home. We'll take a look at the politics of the Hidden World in a bit, but first, let's talk about how an undiscovered Night Fury colony would affect the villains and antagonists of the How to Train Your Dragon universe. For other dragon hunters beyond Grimmel, the existence of multiple Night Furies would be like discovering a gold mine. Think about it, Night Furies are already considered the most valuable and dangerous dragons to capture, and human greed was one of the main reasons Hiccup moved the dragons to the Hidden World in the first place. If there's more than just Toothless out there, we're talking about bounties that would make dragon hunting the most lucrative profession in the Viking world. This wouldn't just be individual hunters going after single dragons anymore. We'd be looking at a resurgence of the old warlords who'd shift operations to regions where the Night Furies live. In this scenario, Hiccup and the Vikings of Berk would be at a disadvantage, since taming dragons was their biggest edge over the other warlords. Thus, we might see a sequel or a new arc of the franchise where the Vikings of Berk attempt to take on the rest of the archipelago in a crusade to save the dragon. dragons. Now, there's not much one village can do with just regular weapons and technology, so Hiccup may have to make contact with Toothless once again to ask for his help. In this timeline, the Alpha and the other dragons may have to re-emerge from the hidden world to liberate the Night Fury colony, leading to yet another epic showdown. But the bigger threat emerges if Night Furies aren't hunted when they're discovered. Think about the broader implications for human-dragon relations. If there's an advanced Night Fury civilization out there, do they see humans as enemies? Before Hiccup shot him down, Toothless used to terrorize the villagers of Berk by destroying their infrastructure without ever taking anything from them. What if other dragons share these destructive tendencies as well? But here's the darkest possibility. What if the Night Furies discover that humans had been hunting them to extinction? Now, we know that dragons were only murdered and enslaved by a few antagonists like Grimmel, Drago, and other warlords, but the Night Furies wouldn't be interested in making that distinction. If so, they might not be interested in peace without intervention from other dragons. A coordinated Night Fury resistance could escalate human-dragon conflicts into full-scale war. These aren't individual dragons acting on instinct. These would be strategic, intelligent, coordinated attacks against human settlements. Imagine Night Furies raining plasma blasts upon human villages and working together to systematically destroy human-dragon hunting operations. Once again, the Vikings would have to rely on Hiccup contacting Toothless once again to help them negotiate with the new Night Furies. But in this case, it would be to save themselves, not the dragons. Let's say we somehow get the humans out of the way and peace is established once more with the other Night Furies joining the hidden world as well. This brings us to perhaps the most fascinating implication of our story. How would this affect the political structure of the dragon world itself? In the hidden world, we see thousands of dragons living together in relative harmony, but there's clearly a hierarchy. Dragons follow the Alpha, and different species have their own leaders and status levels in the form of Titan Wings or Colony Queens. Night Furies, when they existed, would have been at the top of the dragon hierarchy, as few can match their speed, intelligence, and sheer destructive power. In fact, some fans believe that Night Furies are apex predators that hunt other dragons. Since their abilities are pretty overkill for a predator that only hunts fish or cattle, dragons hunting their own kind isn't a new concept either, since it's canonically confirmed that species such as the Death Song, Razor Whip, Skrill, and Skuldrin prey on smaller dragon species. So what happens when Night Furies suddenly return to the hidden world, not as lone individuals like Toothless, but as an organized group? First, there would be massive political upheaval, since other dragon species have been living without Night Fury leadership for potentially decades or centuries. They've developed their own power structures and their own ways of doing things. Suddenly having Night Furies return and potentially reclaim leadership positions would create enormous tension. Imagine dragons who have been leaders in their communities suddenly being displaced by returning Night Furies who claim authority based on species hierarchy. Second, resource competition would become intense. The hidden world, while vast, still has limited space and resources. If an entire community of apex predators suddenly migrates there, where would they fit? Assuming that Night Furies would somehow resist their wild urges, how would they share territories like breeding areas or hunting grounds? What we can say for sure is that things won't look pretty, as conflict is bound to break out with the bigger, more aggressive Stoker-class dragons like monstrous nightmares getting involved. Naturally, all the dragons would turn to their alpha to resolve this conflict, putting Toothless in an impossible situation. This wouldn't be like choosing between Hiccup and the hidden world. For his entire life, Toothless thought he was the only one of his species. Now, after finding his tribe after so many years, Toothless is at risk of losing it all over again. The Night Furies would surely pressure Toothless to side with his own species and let them take up the dominant position within the hidden world. However, given what we know about Toothless's personality, I think it's more likely that he'll place his role as the Alpha above all else and decide to side with the other dragons. Now, this could potentially lead to Toothless being rejected by the Night Furies, putting him in a position where he once again loses his community, but his track record as a leader suggests that Toothless would somehow integrate the Night Furies into regular life in the hidden world through sheer force of will, giving us a more comprehensive and cathartic ending. Do you prefer this storyline where Toothless isn't the last of his kind, or do you think the hidden world gave us the perfect ending? As always, make sure to share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. See ya! Bye!